Love you, Linda. Love you.
The courthouse the other day in the hallway, you're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
And welcome to Justice Served TV. I'm Michael Bryant. Linda Kenny Bodden there is sporting the merch.
Yeah, sporting the merch, modeling. Says, say Justice Served TV. I even have the leggings to match.
Oh my gosh.
And they're all over Justice Served TV.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in the country, so I thought I'd wear a little camouflage as we discuss the cases we're going to discuss.
I couldn't see you for a minute there with your camouflage. I couldn't see you. So.
All right, I blend in with the flowers. You see the flowers over there?
Yes, I know that chair very well because we were sharing that chair just on Saturday. Nice little gathering you had at your place, and it was nice to be in the same room.
Yes.
So we just did a quick promo for the week's events because we got a lot of stuff happening this week. So
yeah. And as a matter of fact, just you'll see Seeking Justice has our listing, but it doesn't have all of them because we're also going to be on for tomorrow night. We have Aiden Carney on his tour at 7 p.m. And then Wednesday, we're going to, I think it's at 11 o'clock. We'll be on for 2 hours on Koberger. And then at 6 p.m. again with Mike Easter on the Brian Walsh case. Yep. And then Thursday at 6, we have Auntie Deb, right?
Yep. And yep, that's right. Okay. I'm with you.
And at Friday, we have the Friedelsons, which is the Adelson case. We're going to go over whose testimony Friday?
Catherine Katie Magbenois, the ex-girlfriend of the dentist Charles Adelson, Charlie, who has been convicted. And then she became kind of the girlfriend go-between with the folks that actually pulled the trigger on the Dan Markell. So, so we will continue that process as we get into this Friday. It'll be Catherine Magbenois. But today, are you ready for something new and exciting?
This is gonna be fire. People are going to accuse us of being political today. We're not. We're just talking about legal aspects of different things.
Before we get to that, we have this. Okay, rip and read. So what we're going to do is just a few headlines from stories that we've been covering, or maybe you've been covering. First of all, in the case out of Portugal, Madeleine McCann, you may remember this is a little girl missing 18 years now, never found. Nobody's ever been arrested, charged, but there is a suspect. Anyway, when I was over there recently, just within a day or so of my leaving, they initiated another search in Portugal, Praia da Luz, the little town where she disappeared. I'm here to report, unfortunately, they found nothing. They looked in some abandoned buildings. They did some ground radar type searches, but nothing. Nothing new. Case is ongoing and open. The family, of course, they're from the UK, continuing to hold out hopes that someday somebody will actually, pay for this crime. But that hasn't changed. That's where they are. Okay.
The missing bodies cases are terrible, and the missing bodies of children, I can't even imagine. As those two poor parents. I mean, I can't imagine.
Yeah, 18 years ago.
Yeah. But we've been covering it. You've been covering it. You're on top of it. We've been dealing with it. You've been to Portugal twice now on this case, and we will keep covering this case.
Yep, we will. So you mentioned the Kohlberger sentencing, which is coming up Wednesday. A couple of developments in that, which I think are interesting. One is that, remember, Judge Hippler is involved in this now, and he's been asked because the case is kind of over. I guess technically when sentencing takes place, that's when the conviction kicks in. But he's been asked to, lift the gag order, which he did. But he said that he's going to be trickling out the documents. It's not going to be this wholesale dump. It's going to be in reverse order from when he received them. Again, he was the new judge when the case was moved from Latah to Ada County. So that's going to trickle out. But here's the thing that I think is going to be most interesting and people are going to talk about. You'll recall in his plea, that day that all of that unfolded, one of the provisions of the plea was he would be waiving his right to appeal. Remember that?
Right, I remember that.
Not so.
Oh.
Not so.
Whoa.
Technically he has, but I'm sure you're familiar with a little case called Garza versus Idaho, a little Supreme Court case. In that case, the court ruled that even if a defendant waives the right to appeal, he or she does not waive the right to appeal. And it has to do with Sixth Amendment grounds, which are generally ineffective assistance of counsel, right? So the courts have said, and this is a Supreme Court decision, that that is a standalone protection for a defendant. So even if the defendant waives, they don't waive. And the reason for it makes perfect sense. If, as part of the plea deal, ineffective assistance of counsel led you to waive, then you can't waive. So I think people are going to be pissed off about that, because certainly that's one of the deals that they want to see not unfold, no appeals.
Right.
But technically, and Hippler, the judge said, he's the one who mentioned it. He said, by the way, there's this Garza case. He really hasn't waived that right to appeal. So those are the new headlines for today. But of course, Wednesday is a big day. Victim impact statements will take place that morning. We'll be on at 11 Eastern Daylight Time. We'll see how that unfolds through the course of the morning and afternoon. I think you said, what was the info you had about
on the Gonzalez family? The sister is going to be giving the victim impact statement. I imagine this is going to be a day full of tears. There's going to be some retribution attacks by the Gonzalez family, who is not happy about this. There's some people who have demanded, including President Trump got involved in this, that he wants Kohlberg to say why he did this. Other people are saying that it's important for them that Hitler should force Kohlberger to say the names of the victims. So we have all this swirling around. We've got the President of the United States involved. We have one of the families who are upset. We have three of the families who want to get this over. We now learn that even though you get it over, you don't really get it over, because there can be a way to appeal. And we're going to have just an emotional day anyhow. And when those documents start getting released, I don't know if they're going to release everything. I think there's going to be some objection to releasing the autopsy reports of these kids who obviously were slaughtered. I think that this is going to go on for a long time. Yeah. So Wednesday, a big day in that, and then the rest of this will unfold in the days and weeks following. Right. So that's our rip and read for the day. Now let's move into the reason. Did you tell people that's our new opening? Rip and read.
Yeah, rip and read. And that's for those who may not. Back in the good old days, Sonny, when I was in radio, they would have AP and UPI teletype, right? And it would be like that sound you may have heard in here. I'll run it again so you can. So that's if you're in a newsroom, that was just like white noise. You heard it all day, every day. Now, of course, it doesn't exist anymore, which is kind of
all day, right? Except that you forgot one rip and read.
Oh, what was that? I did. What was it? What I forget?
Karen Reed on the
Karen Rip and Read.
Karen Rip and Read. All right. I mean, actually, you didn't really forget it. I mean, it was.
I did forget it. Is it on your list? I forgot.
It's on my list. And the Karen Rip and Read is that Karen Reed's had a motion that she filed on July 15th, actually. Today is July 21st, and it was already granted. And the motion was to amend the terms and conditions of her probation to remove the travel restrictions. In other words, she doesn't need to have the 14-day advance notice to leave the state. It's already been approved by the head of probation. She can go outside of jurisdiction anytime she wants. All right, because she had to complete the attendance, and she has been in complete compliance with the terms and conditions of her probation, including reporting. And remember, our expert, Michael DeSignore from Massachusetts, said this is exactly what was going to happen, that she'll be doing phone reporting anyhow. All she has to do is take that course that she needs to take, what is called the Operating Under the Influence Adult Education Program in the county. Okay, and her probation was already transferred to Bristol Superior Court from Norfolk already. All right, so that is also happening, and I assume that these terms and conditions are going to end pretty soon anyhow, as soon as she completes the course that she won't even be required to report.
Yeah. And again, as it should be for the nature of the charges she was convicted of, which was DUI, which is apparently a hobby of folks in Norfolk County, including the cops.
Yeah, including the cops. Remember, they're on duty, according to the report, that audit, that they're on duty drinking and driving, but nothing happens to them.
Fine, don't worry about it. Don't worry so much about that stuff. Okay, so we are happy to have a guest with us today that is going to get into some huge cases with us and some huge personalities. Speaking of huge personality, there he is, Gene Rossi. Gino, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm speaking with both of you.
Good to have you along. What have you been up to?
funny.
No, that's great, Gene. You and I, this started because you and I spoke the other day, and here we are.
Wow.
So yeah, for those who may not remember, Gene was a frequent guest and contributor on the Law and Crime Network, and so we've both shared his expertise and enjoyed his visits. For those who may not remember, and I don't want to fill in the blanks here, but you're kind of a big deal, former federal prosecutor. Is it 107 trials? Is that the right number?
It's over 100.
Over 100. Okay, and you've got this room with your name on it.
I'm a legend in my own mind. How's that?
No, you're not. The Gene Rossi War Room in the Department of Justice, okay?
Yeah.
Because you are such a legend, because you're such a great trial attorney, because you're just you're so personable. It's hard to believe you were this persecutor for.
You want to know why?
Why?
Full-blooded Northern Italian. That's why.
I'm full-blooded Southern Italian. That's why. Yes,
I won't hold that against you.
And Michael Bride, he's just out there.
Yeah, I'm just in California. Ho hum. Yeah. So, Gene, what's on your mind today? What's the topic of discussion?
Well, I'm going to talk about a trilogy: Hunter Biden, Diddy, and Jeffrey Epstein. If you'll let me do that.
How if we had Comey? How if we had Maureen Comey to that trilogy?
Maureen Comey. Well,
we'll make it a quadrilogy. What is it if you put four things in?
Quadrangle. I think it's a quadrangle.
I know the Pentagon and a three-legged stool, but that's all I know.
So I would not put those folks in the same sentence generally. Hunter Biden, Epstein, Diddy. So go ahead.
Well, here's the thing about the Diddy case, and I bloviated and talked about this for several weeks, this is a good example of how the prosecutors, I think, got a little too ahead of their skis. Because a RICO charge, when a jury gets a RICO charge, you're thinking El Chapo, you're thinking Gotti, you're not thinking about Sean Diddy Combs, who had a horrible track record when it came to his girlfriends and other people. But it really was a personal issue that was elevated to an enterprise, a pattern of conduct, and count one of the indictment. And it goes without saying that the jury didn't buy it. They found him not guilty of RICO. That was the whole case, really. The case had 5 counts. RICO was count 1. And then 2, 3, 4, and 5 were 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, coercion, and fraud. And then 2 counts, and these are 2 counts that probably could apply to many, 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 many men in the Washington, D.C. area who persuade maybe a lady of the night to come visit them from, say, California or another state for a weekend at the Willard Hotel, which is right near the White House. That occasion probably happens every hour. So Mr. Diddy was found guilty of what they call the Mann Act, which is what I just described. You're just causing somebody to cross state lines so you could have a sex act, if you will.
Gene, can I just interrupt you? Isn't like D.C. next to Alexandria, Virginia, where a lot of the government people live? If somebody crosses into Washington, D.C. from Virginia, does that satisfy, like, and you're going to pay for prostitution, the Mann Act?
You have not read me my Miranda rights, but okay? Let's just put it this way. The Mann Act is a charge that, how should I say it? It's like charging people outside a methadone clinic with possession of heroin. It's what are you doing? What are you doing bringing the full force of the United States Attorney for the Southern District of Newark to prosecute 2 Mann Act counts? Well, what happened? He was found guilty of the Mann Act, 2 counts, and not guilty of RICO and the 2 sex trafficking. And here's why, in my book, and nobody's talking about this. when I did cases for the United States, I always thought about what's the jury going to think about when they look at the prosecution team. What are they going to think about? They're going to see Gene Rossi, and they may see one or two, and I got to emphasize, one or two other prosecutors. I tried a few cases by myself, but I never liked it. I just didn't like it. I like being with people. So what was the jury looking at when they saw the prosecution team for the Southern District of New York? Are you ready?
Okay, ready.
They saw six prosecutors, all white, all female, in their 20s and 30s. And who's the defendant? Goes without saying. It's Diddy. But what kind of team did Diddy have? He had a very diverse team. Very diverse. And I happen to believe that jury saw that contrast and then was filtering all the witness testimony and saying, something doesn't seem right here. Are they getting ahead of their skis? Are they trying too hard to put Diddy on a trophy and on the wall? I felt that way from the first day they tried this case and did opening statements. Not a lot of people want to talk about it, but that was hovering. I heard there were 7 or 8 prosecutors, but I think it was at least 6.
In the courtroom. And the tables there are 3 in front, 3 in back, if I recall, right? So
I want to give you an example.
The optics. Yeah, let's do the optics.
That's what I say. Okay. It wasn't my case, and I'm not going to mention the name of the prosecutors. I'm not going to mention the plaintiff. But when I was with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Eastern District of Virginia, I remember vividly a civil case involving a person who was trying to get into the FBI and he lost his legs or he was in a wheelchair. But for whatever reason, he wasn't picked to be in the FBI. He sued the United States of America for damages. Okay? I remember this like it was yesterday. The plaintiff had 2 or 3 attorneys. The government, you ready for this?
How many?
There were 6 prosecutors, civil prosecutors for the United States.
Wow.
And Linda, you hit the nail on the head. There were 2 tables. One table had 3 prosecutors. The second table had 3 prosecutors. And Linda, you're going to love this one. When they had sidebars where you walk up to the side of the judge, they turn on the white noise. It was a jury trial. All 6 prosecutors were in the sidebar. And the plaintiff is in a wheelchair. Well, guess who won? The plaintiff.
Yeah.
So when I mention these examples, it wasn't my trial, but I'm one of these junkies. I loved watching other trials in addition to doing my own. And I always learn by participating as an attorney, but also watching. That never left my mind. And when I was thinking about the Diddy case, I was remembering that case in Alexander, Virginia, many moons ago.
Isn't that interesting? Because I think the optics, you're absolutely right. You have the lead prosecutor, Maureen Comey, right? And then let me just see, there were actually 8 lawyers listed for the federal government. 5 of them were designated as leads. 5, okay? But we know that Maureen Comey was the lead, right? Yeah. They included Emily Ann Johnson, Madison Reddick Smicer, Mary Christine Slavic, Meredith Foster, and Mitzi Steiner. So you start having 6 prosecutors, really 6 leads because she's the boss. And then you have 2 others who may, be helping. And we always know there's other people helping. It's different than when you're a defense attorney and people look over and say, well, look at those 5 defense attorneys. But that's all we have. We don't have the other 10,000 people sitting up in the office.
I'm going to give you another example. Now, the 2 prosecutors that filed notices of appearance, I can't imagine the jury didn't figure out that they were also on the team. Even though they weren't sitting at table, they were probably in the front row of the audience. But remember the OJ trial?
Yes.
Guess how many prosecutors in the OJ trial did a witness? Guess.
15?
Did a witness?
Yes. Who did a witness? Who did a
15? Was it 15 or
There
10?
were 8
8?
prosecutors. My hands can't get in here. And I remember one of them, his nickname was Woody. Okay, I don't know why I remember that. But when a jury's looking at that and they're seeing OJ, although he had a few himself, but they're saying to themselves, why the hell do they have 8 prosecutors to prosecute OJ? And at the end of the day, really, at the end of the day, it had a lot of witnesses. It wasn't the most complicated case. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
To have 8 prosecutors. So that's just one reason why he was acquitted on 3 counts. That's one reason.
But the thing about that also, Gene, when you're looking at that, is some of those prosecutors, they came in for a day and then they left. They never sat. They never were there. Were the witness to the, there was no way to just sit there. Sometimes you sit there and you're sitting there, but the jury's smiling at you and all. They just left.
Here's the other thing. Marsha Clark didn't speak in front of the jury, I think, for 2 months. And she's the lead. She lost all that credibility that she had. I think she gave the opening. But there was about 1 or 2 months where she did not handle a witness, i.e. speak in front of the jury. And then you're going to do closing? Come on. You have to develop a bond. When I did my trials in front of juries, of course, the government sits closest to the jury. I'm developing a rapport with them. We can't talk to each other, but they're feeling the love and passion of Gene Rossi. Absolutely. And I couldn't talk to him, but I would look at him. I wouldn't do what Diddy did, which I thought was stupid. I'm not glaring at him and trying to wink, but I could feel the jury was sort of bonding with me. It's a strange feeling, but it's a beautiful feeling. When you have 6 to 8 prosecutors, they don't have any connection with these prosecutors. There's too many of them.
How about the fact they try to get off me before Michael? Michael, I'm going to go. Michael gave in because I spoke to you. I have one more question, Michael. Then I'll shut up.
Yeah, go ahead.
How about the fact that the 6, and I hate to bring race and gender into this, but I'm going to bring it because I think when we talk jury selection, talk to jury consultants, this is important.
Absolutely.
6 white females who tried to get the 1 black male juror off the jury when you have a defendant who is of a different race.
And you know what? Those jurors, they figured it out. You know, they got one juror that is there 1 minute and not there the next, and he's a black person. They figured it out. But it's not just what I just talked about. That's one factor. There's about 4 others, okay, including some of the witnesses. Now, I got to say this about the prosecutors. They're brilliant. They're capable. They're honest. But I have to say, my late father-in-law had a great line. People can be so smart they don't think. They can be so smart they don't think. By having 6 to 8 prosecutors, they didn't really get to the heart of the case and what the jury's gonna feel like. And there's a former U.S. attorney for New Jersey, not Howard Stern, but Herbert Stern.
Herb Stern.
He's written a book, and he has a great line. What are the facts of a case? Whatever a jury believes. Okay, and in OJ, self-evident. Okay, when Mark Thurman lied his you-know-what off about using the N-word, and then they had the glove thing that Christopher Darden kind of stepped in dog do on that. Case was over. But I always remember that whatever the jury believes are the facts. And in this case, the jury just did not believe several and many of the witnesses of the government. They didn't believe them. Give you one good example. The lady who said she was held upside down either on the 7th or 17th floor by Diddy. Okay, remember that witness? I forget her name, was Bianca or began with a B. All right. Big problem there. She was in LA, and then the receipts, if you will, show that Diddy was in New York City. And one of the greatest questions of that trial was by, I think her name's Westmoreland. She did a cross-examination.
Nicole Westmoreland. We saw her in the
It
YSL
was
case.
brilliant. I might write her an email. Brilliant. She said, Miss So-and-so, would you agree with me that it's hard to be in two places at the same time? That said it all. That said it all. And you know what hurt the government's case the most? Is in redirect. They tried to rehabilitate her. If the government knew of the receipts and that inconsistency, that should have come out in direct. You front it. But that was just one witness.
Well, even with that witness, how could you even put her on and ask for that testimony with that glaring error right in your face? Yeah.
You don't put her on.
Hey,
and here's the other thing. I always said, my God, this witness was not Twiggy. Okay. She didn't weigh 70 pounds. She wasn't obese, but she was enough. And he's holding her ankles and over the balcony. I mean,
not easy. That's not easy to do.
Strong, but he ain't that strong.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's, I go, that's an incredible story. That's an incredible story. Now, did Diddy probably lose his temper a few times? Yeah. I mean, everybody agrees with that. But here's the other thing. It goes back to RICO. When you charge 5 counts and one of your counts is an Etzel. Remember the Ford Etzel, 1957?
Well, I've read about it. I wasn't.
I know you weren't born. I was born in 56. By the way, my birthday is July 24th. FYI.
Hey,
Anyway.
happy early birthday.
Happy early birthday.
But the RICO count was the Etzel. The Etzel, for those who are listening, the Etzel was a car that was promoted like you wouldn't believe. And Etzel was the son of Henry Ford. And they named the car after Etzel.
I never knew that.
So what happened was they put it on the market, and in 7 or 8 months, it tanked because no one liked the car. It was ugly.
Ugly
It was
car.
an
Ugly name, ugly car. Yeah.
But the count one was the Etzel. And when you have one count that is weak, it's collateral damage. It affects all the other counts in the indictment. And that's what the defense attorney was arguing in his closing. You have this Etzel. He didn't say Etzel, I am. But it affects the whole approach to this case that it was overcharged.
Okay, I'm glad you got back to RICO because that's a question I have for you on a broader scale. We have seen now YSL tried RICO, ASAP Rocky tried RICO, and obviously in this case, RICO. What's your take on this attempt to use the racketeering statute for an unusual or different purpose? And it's failed 3 times.
Michael, that's an excellent question. You're putting a square peg in a round hole or vice versa. Okay. It goes back to what I said before. RICO, you save it for El Chapo. You save it for Gotti. You save it for somebody who's sort of a kingpin. This case never fit the public's perception of what a RICO statute is for. This was a case about personal grievances and horrendous conduct that was elevated to a level of RICO. And they were trying to make the facts of this case something that it was not. Where was the enterprise? That was a problem. Where was the pattern of conduct? That was a problem. You had this unrelated instances of anger management where he's torching a car, he's beating somebody up. But was it the classic RICO where he had a purpose? And here's the other thing in standard RICO cases: money, 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 money. The only money that was going out in this case was Diddy paying off people, but he wasn't making money off of his RICO enterprise, and that hurt him too. That hurt him too, in my view.
And I think there was an issue with consent. I mean, that's the way I felt about it before we get back into the Mann Act, because I think that's a collateral issue but similar. As I said after this trial, I said, everybody has the right to make a bad choice. All of these folks did things that they then complained about later, but they took the money, the trips, the high lifestyle all along the way. And now they come back into court and they're trying to convince this jury that what they did was coercion. And the jury didn't buy it.
No, Michael, you hit the nail on the head. The jury believed that he was horrible and he beat his girlfriends and he had them do things that were just beyond. But part of them felt, I haven't talked to the jury, but I'm just inferring, they felt, you know what, all that happened, but they kept going back to him. I think they were attracted by his glamour, his stature, his prestige, if you will, because they all, and at times, even after incidences that were just horrible, 2 weeks later, they're writing love letters to him. They're going on trips where there's affection. That wasn't good. That wasn't good. Yeah. It really was not.
Yeah.
And RICO was, for people that know, RICO was developed to prosecute the mafia. I mean, I talked about the movie The Godfather last week with the horse's head being killed. That's how you were trying to get to the mafia, to get an enterprise, you know, so that, because of the money, right, that was coming in from all the transactions all over the mafia was doing, people that didn't know each other. It wasn't meant, it wasn't, you know, that was years ago. It wasn't meant 50 years later for this type of stuff.
Right. I'll give you my experience, you know, the 100 trials or over 100 that Michael mentioned. One of them was a pain doctor, Dr. William Hurwitz of McLean, Virginia, and he would prescribe up to 1,200. I'm not making this up. He intentionally prescribed up to 1,200 oxy pills a day to at least one patient. He was crazy. He was crazy. Oh yeah, he was crazy. But I charged the equivalent of a RICO in this case. He ran a pill mill. You know, patients come in, they get the easy handed out prescriptions like cotton candy. I charged RICO. He was found not guilty of the RICO. And the reason is this: did it fit the drug trafficking statute and overprescribing and all that? Yes. But did it fit RICO, the El Chapo, the Vito Corleone, the John Gotti? And the jury just didn't buy it. Didn't buy it.
Yeah. We haven't seen it. I like I've said, I appreciate the creativity from the prosecution to try and cram that into their set of facts, but so far it ain't working. The Mann Act, though, and I have always had a beef about this.
Yeah.
The Mann Act.
Could I ask you one question before we get to that?
No, you
Michael?
cannot. No, go ahead.
No, because I want to ask Gene, because I know I see this in our chat. We all saw that horrendous video of him beating Cassie.
Yes.
That was an assault. Explain why that didn't fit into the RICO charge and why the jury didn't buy the issue of coercive control of women being part of the RICO charge before we get to the Mann Act, just because I see all these questions.
I'll just give you a good reason in my view. And I haven't talked to the jury, but I'm just trying to put myself in their shoes. Was it an absolutely categorical display of abuse and violence and disreputable conduct? Yes, times 10. But was that an isolated incident? I think it occurred in 2006. Am I right on that? The video?
I don't remember.
Does that sound right? It was well past the statute.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So the one point I want to make is that the jury's going, okay, this is almost 20 years ago, and we're talking about it in this trial today. That could have been a factor. The second thing is you have to connect it to the RICO, and they could not. And I think that affected the sex trafficking charges.
It's 2016, say our viewers. 2016.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, 16. Okay, I'm off. But
yeah, still way past the statute. Same point.
But here's the thing: they had the sex trafficking were predicate acts of the RICO, and they probably felt, you know what? Was she there because of consent and she loved him, and then this went off the rails because he lost his cool and he got violent? Is that what happened? Or is this connected to some grand enterprise? And I think the jury probably felt it was the former,
Sure.
that this is just a moment in time in their relationship when he just went crazy. That's probably what they felt.
Yeah, and they probably thought, even though they didn't calculate dates and times for statute of limitations purposes, they probably felt like, why didn't you charge the guy with that? This happened so long ago. Why didn't he get charged with that? But they wouldn't know the ins and outs of why he didn't get charged.
At least at the state level. At
Yeah.
least at the state level. And the other thing is, I don't know if I don't know if the jury liked that victim. I'm not sure that the jury liked that victim because she was with him for many years. She had many opportunities. This was said in closing, many opportunities to leave, but she stayed on. And I forget, she got a big settlement. She had settled.
She sued, and the next day it was resolved. Yeah.
Yeah, and she also had her own music line and things like that. They probably.
She also sued the hotel.
For your listeners, Bob Seger, I'm a big Bob Seger fan. He has a song called Night Moves.
Yep.
And in that song, there are two lyrics that apply to this case. Diddy. I used her, she used me, and neither one of us cared. The jury, in my view, probably felt they both used each other. They both were abused. They both used each other. And I'm not going to make this into some grand RICO crime. This is just the way they rolled. And was there assault that could have been prosecuted at the state level? Of course. That video alone. But that's probably what the jury felt. Has anybody ever interviewed the jurors after the verdict? I don't think so. I don't think so. But Linda Kenny Bodden, I'm not going to. We talked about this the other day about one of your friends. Remember, we were talking about this. Somebody you had talked to, and some of the things I'm saying were replicated by what this.
I was talking to a bunch of women in the community in New York City, and not Caucasian white like me, and they were like, "Hey, we all work for a living. She was fine." And I'm just telling you what I heard, okay? And this is the jury that you're going to get your jury from. She liked going to this, she liked going to that, she liked going to that. When things broke down, and of course, you may beat her and stuff like that, but she still came back. And this wasn't coercive control because she got a handbag, she got this, and it lasted for too long. Now, that's what I heard, okay? I'm not saying that's right or wrong or indifferent, but I think in terms of everything the jury was hearing, that they felt that he was probably a drug addict. They were all drug addicts, and that there was a lot of money changing hands, but this wasn't an enterprise. This was an abusive situation, and it didn't follow the RICO statute. That's what I think it came.
Everybody has a right to make a bad choice. These people decided to stick around for money, for handbags, for whatever. And I'm not a Diddy apologist. Remind me to tell you my Diddy story where I was almost accosted by his bodyguards. But, the fact is they were adults and they made choices, and they weren't very smart choices. And
here's the other comment I want to make. I'm a defense attorney now, and we always pound beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not, I kind of feel he's guilty, or, he may be guilty. He's probably guilty. This case illustrates that the burden of proof of beyond a reasonable doubt actually means something. I'll guarantee you every juror who found him not guilty probably said, you know what? He's guilty. Probably guilty, but did the government prove it beyond a reasonable doubt?
I agree with you.
I can't go there. Now, may there be civil actions? Sure, which is 51% preponderance. Yeah, you could have proved it by preponderance, But I got to say that defense attorney, in closing, he did a magnificent job. I knew there was a problem when I read in the paper that the defense attorney got the jury laughing. In my experience, when a defense attorney is getting the jury laughing, the prosecutor,
Yep.
and I was there, I want to crawl under the table. That's not a good sign.
Yeah.
Not a good sign.
Yeah. Hey, I want to do a couple of things here before we get to a question for you from one of our viewers. Joey Kane, it would not be Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday without Joey Kane mentioning his membership or giving free memberships as he does so often. Here's a question we have for you. Where we go. Here it is. Do you think the judge will sentence Diddy to more or go easy on him? What do you think? The max or go easy on him? Do you think you'll sentence him to the max or go easy on him?
What's the name of the questioner? I just curious.
Oh, that's Sheila Duffy.
Oh, Sheila Duffy, that is a brilliant question. Brilliant. And here's my answer. I think the judge, he never expressed this. I think the judge is going to hammer him. I really do.
Do you think you take some of that from the fact that he wouldn't grant bail for convictions on things that normally would include bail?
Yes. When he denied bail, I said that was a red flag. Now, is he going to sentence him to 40 years, 30? No, that's not going to happen. But I predict that Diddy's probably going to get 7 years in prison.
All right.
Is that the Mann Act? Is that on the two Mann Acts?
Yeah, the Mann Act are 10 each, technically.
And here's why, and this goes to the good question, a great question. When and you probably talked about this already, the Supreme Court, rightly or wrongly, Linda Kenny Biden, has said that acquitted conduct can be used at a sentencing.
Yep.
Acquitted conduct.
I have told people that they don't believe it.
They don't believe it.
They don't believe when in a federal court, people that have been acquitted of a crime, actually found not guilty of a crime, it can be used in sentencing to increase the penalty and to justify the penalty you give. People don't believe you, Gene. People don't believe me when I say that.
And the reason is, and this gets to Mr. Duffy's question, is at a sentencing, it's not beyond a reasonable doubt. The court can find by preponderance, 51%, that A, B, C, and D happen. Okay? And can use A, B, and C to enhance the sentence. There is no doubt in my mind that this judge is going to find A, B, and C by a preponderance and use that to give him at least 7 years. Right. Absolutely.
On each Mann Act conviction
or combined.
He can use the acquitted conduct, Linda Kenny Biden.
Thank you for getting my name right. You may be the only person in the last month that got my name right.
I call you Miss Polenta, and that's some other.
Okay, that's another story.
We can save a show for that one. But he can take the acquitted conduct on RICO and the 2 sex trafficking, 3 counts, and use that to inform him on the sentence he will give on the Mann Act.
Right. But it's a max 20, 2 times 10 for the Mann Act. That's just so the folks know the max if he wanted to really go to the top.
First off, he won't do consecutive. He'll just say concurrent. But I really believe that for the 2 Mann Act charges, he will give 7 years imprisonment if I were betting. Okay.
And he'll get a year for time served. So, and if he does 85% in the feds, he's going to get out in 6 years, 5 years.
But don't forget, he gets some good time.
Yeah.
So if he gives him 7 years, you subtract the time he's already served,
right?
Which is how much?
About a year. He went in September, so about a year.
Bring that down to 6. The last 6 months, you go to a halfway house, so we're now 5.5. He serves 85% of that if he's good, so we're now down to 4.5. Yeah. Okay, basically.
Yeah.
The judge is going to say 4.5 is plenty. Is well deserved.
Well, let me ask you this: because of that, you have the conduct where, and the judge denied the bail because of his attorneys admitted that he's guilty of domestic violence, okay? Whether he's found guilty of it or not, he admitted he's guilty of domestic violence. We saw the beating of Cassie, right? All right. And we all know that in domestic violence victims, sometimes you can't you can't leave. Your mindset becomes you can't leave, no matter what the jury thought as it applied to RICO. Does his finding already that he's guilty of domestic violence, does that allow him to use the beating of Cassie to make sure that sentence is enhanced, that he gives the sentence of 7 years?
Yes, he could do that. Sure. And I'm saying it's going to be at least 7 years. Frankly, if I were the judge, and I believe the RICO was overcharged, the conduct, you can't ignore the conduct, the gravity of the conduct, even if he was acquitted. So 7 years, at least, I think that's what's going to happen. Great question, Sheila Duffy.
So here, let's talk now about, because we've dangled out there Hunter Biden and Jeffrey Epstein
and the
Mann Act.
What is the Mann Act, by the way?
I can show you some of it here. The Mann Act was 1910. They came up with this, and it's actually
Mann Act.
It's actually, I'm not going to read the full text because people would be very angry. But the part I've highlighted is what it's all about, and it goes into it's traveling people across state lines, and the line they use. Let me see if I can make it a touch bigger for easier.
It's easy to violate. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, of course, and it's changed a few times over the years because let me see if I can go to the bottom, and they have this was not originally just the Mann Act. It was the White Slave Traffic Act. Yep. That's what it was for. So it's gone through some permutations over the years. In 1978 was the biggest one. That's where they changed. If you can follow my cursor down here, you'll see the immoral practice. There it is. To engage in any other immoral practice. They changed those words to just say anything that would otherwise be a crime. So my problem with this, Mr. Rossi, is prostitution. It's probably philosophical as much as anything else. But who's the victim in the prostitution, and should that be the crime for which the Mann Act attaches?
Well, I mean, society has determined that prostitution, even if it's consensual, is something that society can't tolerate. So that's just a cultural policy issue. But to me, and I mentioned this at the beginning, I'm in Washington, D.C. I'm two blocks from the White House, and I can guarantee you there's I won't mention names, of course, but it's not unusual for individuals in the Washington, D.C. area to enlist ladies of the night and have those ladies of the night cross state lines. That happens all the time. That is a violation of the Mann Act, period.
Right.
Now, let's go to Hunter Biden. When I heard the facts of the Hunter Biden, and I thought he was overcharged on that gun count. I thought that gun charge was total baloney. That was baloney. His conviction on the gun count. The taxes, different. Because I did criminal tax, civil tax for 11 years. And he evaded and tried to avoid paying $2.2 million in taxes. Not income, but taxes. That's not a misdemeanor. That's a felony. So what I heard from the facts, or what I gathered from the facts, is he engaged in the classic Mann Act, but because it's hardly ever charged, they focused on the gun and the taxes. But Hunter Biden academically may have violated the Mann Act.
Yeah, and they investigated that and decided not to pursue it. I'm surprised they didn't tack it on, because I think that's what they did with Diddy. They tacked it on, right? Did. And what it did was it gave the jury an opportunity to hit him with something, even if they failed on the RICO and the trafficking charges. So I thought, well, maybe with Biden they'll do the same thing. But I think because the tax case was so solid, they weren't as worried about a fallback. Exactly.
And Michael, you hit on a good point. By having those two Mann Act counts, the government kind of led with their chin because they gave the jury an out. The jury's not stupid. They know what the Mann Act is, and they know you're not supposed to discuss in deliberation sentencing, but they knew that RICO's RICO, and the Mann Act, that those other counts, they figured it out. They figured it out.
Yeah.
And they may have had a societal problem too. Look, we see, for instance, in the Long Island serial killer, all women who engage in prostitution or sex workers, right? They get killed because they're the least protected. They can't go to the police. They're scared to go to the police, and because what they are doing is technically illegal, right? And it results in the fact that they're again, they don't get protected. And who do we see killed? Who's serial killers? Is usually somebody who's engaged in sex work or prostitution, as it's called in the old days, right? And I think there's a philosophical difference that if somebody wants to engage in the sex work, that they should be allowed to engage in sex work, as there was no indication that it was forced. When it's forced, it's a whole different issue, sex trafficking. And that's what I thought when we first had the Homeland Security involved. I thought we were importing women against their will, children. I thought it was children when we saw Diddy. And I thought, well, that's really bad. But it turned out it wasn't. And I think there's that philosophical difference, too, that our society has not come to grips with.
Yeah, I did want to say something. I'm not good friends with Jim Comey, but I handled a case with Jim Comey back in 1997. But I want to say something about his daughter, Maureen. She's got a lot of integrity, incredibly brilliant and gifted, and breaks my heart that she was fired.
Well, but Gene, she was ahead of this team that made bad decisions, right? I mean, she could have been fired for political reasons. We all know that.
Yeah.
But she's ahead of this team that either you think that we spent a lot of money to convict Diddy and didn't and should have, or we spent a lot of money to convict Diddy on charges that shouldn't have been brought in the first place. And whatever you think of her, I mean, that's a real problem in the Diddy case. Either way.
But Linda Kenny Bodden, just because she was involved in a case that was aggressive, it was novel, and she didn't prevail, well, excluding the Mann Act, that's not grounds for firing a person. That indictment had to go up the chain. I'm sure that indictment went to the Attorney General of the United States or the Deputy Attorney General.
She was probably given the case, not promoting it, right? Don't you think she was given the case and then did the best she could with what she had?
Oh, I think she was involved in the investigation from the beginning. And she probably wrote a pros memo, or she and her colleagues, but that went up the chain of command. And there's probably about 5, 6, 7 people above her that approved this indictment. So
why do you think she was fired? Is it because her last name was Comey?
People don't,
I mean, is that part of it?
She's the daughter of James Comey, the head of the FBI. So people that don't know, let's get this at the back, set the plate. All right.
In my view, if you put a gun to my head, she was fired because Comey is her last name. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think we should share her statement,
which I thought was very classy.
Yep. If a career prosecutor can be fired without reason, fear may seep into the decisions of those who remain. Do not let that happen. According to a copy of a message she sent to former colleagues reported in Politico. Instead of fear, let this moment fuel the fire that allegedly burns at the heart of this place. She added, a fire of righteous indignation and abuses of power, of commitment to seek justice for victims, of dedication to truth above all else.
And what's great about her statement, and that was the next paragraph, is she talks about how a federal prosecutor, especially a federal prosecutor, should prosecute people without fear or favor. And she was talking about the favor. You don't favor anybody. But then she later on in her statement was talking about, for the first time in my career, I'm worried about fear. And the fear here was, I prosecuted this case to the hilt, and I gave it my best shot. But in this office, there are prosecutors. I'm reading between the lines. There are prosecutors here who are fearful of making certain decisions because they may get fired. And that is what is unique about her statement.
Yeah.
But then we have to draw that off to everybody. You've got the Karen Reed case, right? And they brought in a special prosecutor, which we talked about. And really, in my opinion, one of those prosecutors from the first trial should have stood up and said, well, what are we doing here? It's kind of like Alec Baldwin, right? When the special prosecutor hid evidence. And one of the prosecutors said, I quit. We're not prosecuting this case. So where do you draw the line? Is it over prosecution? Is it under prosecution? Because she also prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell in the Epstein case. So does it have to do with Epstein? Does it have to do with Diddy? Does it have to do with their last name?
I think a major motivation was her last name. I really believe that. Hey, by the way, I had an acquittal, but I indicted a state prosecutor for witness tampering and obstruction. And that's the without any fear or favor. I don't favor anybody, even a state prosecutor. Now, it was an acquittal, but I don't regret bringing that case one bit.
Yeah.
But it
So
is interesting she's in the three major cases: Diddy, Maxwell, and Epstein.
So we've talked about the Mann Act and the lack of application in the Hunter Biden case. Epstein, we never quite got there technically, right? But was that going to be a contemplated charge there? Was that part of the mess against him?
Well, the major problem I have with the Epstein case, and I'm going to be blunt. I'm Northern Italian. I'm blunt. I think the U.S. Attorney's Office in Miami has about 15 eggs on their face because they had a 50-page indictment ready to go against Jeffrey Epstein. And I don't know what happened. I don't know what Alex Acosta was that the name of the
yeah,
US
Alex
attorney?
Acosta.
I don't know what he was smoking that day or drinking that day. But to go from a 50-page indictment federally, and you can imagine what that Pross memo must have said, to go from that to the two baloney charges that he pleaded guilty to in state court, that's a disgrace. That is an absolute disgrace what happened in that case. And then they added insult to injury. In the 13 months, 14 months, he was supposed to serve prison time.
Right.
He was allowed to go out for 12 hours a day.
Working. He had to go to the office. Had to go work.
And he was violating the conditions of his release left and right.
Yeah. He was violating other things too.
That gets into fear or favor. They favored him. And that was a disgrace.
Well, this has got a lot of, all I can say, this sounds to me, Gene, the way you're talking, this has a lot of underpinnings here. When we talk about Diddy, we talk about prosecutorial decisions, non-decisions, guilty verdicts, non-guilty verdicts, high-profile cases, and we have to, and that's excluding the politics of it. And you add the politics into it, which we haven't talked about, this is a mess.
It's a mess on steroids. Absolutely. I could go on and on, but when I was a prosecutor, I don't think I ever let politics get involved in what I charged. Ever. Yeah. And I could say that with a gun to my head and attached to a polygraph test. I never let politics enter my decisions. Never.
Okay, one question each for the three cases that we've discussed. Let's start with Epstein. Do we ever learn who was on? I'm not going to use the word list. Oh, I just did. Because I'm not thinking there's like a list. Will we ever learn co-conspirators or those who received the favors of the arrangements between Epstein and these minor children? That's a no?
No.
Never going to happen.
We may get like a summary. Yeah. Remember when Richard Nixon issued a summary of his tapes? Okay. I'm not going to give you the tapes. I'll give you my summary that I wrote. That's what we may have is like a summary that's, I got to apply my favorite word, that is polenta in nature. Very boring.
Boring, yeah. It's a filler.
Polenta's boring, folks. And
Well, what happens with this motion before to release some of the Epstein grand jury, some of the testimony,
that
but
may be
not the
great.
files?
That may be granted, but here's the problem with the grand jury testimony. You can, as you know, you can put in an agent into the grand jury and they can just summarize and talk hearsay. So those grand jury transcripts may only be cops going in front of the grand jury and summarizing what the victims may have said. That may happen. No names. It'll be initials, if that. So that's possible to get released. That's possible.
Yeah. To what end? Nothing new. Nothing.
No, it'll be a lot of sound and fury, meaning nothing. I think that's from Shakespeare's Macbeth.
Okay, so Hunter Biden, you got a pardon. Is anything? I don't know. Maybe he's found a cleaner way of life. But if he were to commit some of these similar acts again that might be violative of the Mann Act, his pardon would cover that, right? Does he have a prospective pardon?
No.
Oh, he doesn't have perspective?
No.
Oh, okay.
The pardon goes backwards.
That covered all the tax years, those extra tax years that he never used.
Yeah. He's, the only argument you could make for Hunter Biden is that this whole auto pen thing, if his pardon was signed by an auto pen, I don't think it was.
I think his was one of the few that was not, as I recall, which sort of makes sense if Dad's
all the presidents have used an auto pen.
Yeah.
But the auto pen was from Richard Nixon. My husband's big on this because my husband collects presidential signatures. So before that, everything was signed. But then Richard Nixon came in, the auto pen was everything. So when you're getting signatures now, most of them are by auto pen of everything I'm a president. Just so
you had another question, Michael?
Oh, yeah. What was our first topic? Where are we? Who are we? Oh, Diddy. Okay, so, Sheila Duffy actually stole my question, so I have to come up with another one. Do you think at his sentencing that the victims will have, it's federal court, are the victims going to have an opportunity to weigh in?
Oh, absolutely. And when I did sentencings, not in the category of Diddy, but when I did sentencings with victims, especially family members of people who died, those statements are unbelievably powerful. And this is going to be an 8-day, not an 8-day, maybe an 8-hour hearing. It could be 2 days.
Yeah, that was the other question I had. Can a court, of course a court can, in your experience, have you seen them limit impact statements?
I won't mention the judge. I won't mention the city. But I had a case where the judge limited victim testimony. Yes, they can do that.
Yeah, that would be unfortunate. I can understand in a case like this how it could go, as you suggest, multiple days. So,
I mean, if there were 1,000 victims that wanted to testify, I think a judge would have discretion to say, you know what, I don't know if we could do 1,000, maybe 100, but the courts have a lot of discretion. I had a judge, and this to this day makes me mad. Won't mention the jurisdiction, but I wanted, my client got convicted, and this is sentencing, and I wanted members of his family and some friends to say a good word about my client, and the judge cut it off, which I thought was not a cool thing to do.
Yeah, that sounds a little off.
It was bad.
What was who was the doctor in the gymnast scandal? Dr. Nasser, is that right? Nasser. I mean, that was days. That was a lot.
And the judge was very flexible on that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, sorry, Sheila's question was far better than mine, but I did the best I could there. Gene, it's always a pleasure. We're going to keep on top of you and bring you back on when we have these important things to talk about.
I'd be honored.
Your experience is impossible to replace, and we appreciate it.
You guys are great, and the questions are fantastic.
And was there anything we didn't ask you that you want to say?
No, I think Justice Serve TV is like the bomb. They're ambidextrous. They play all positions, and Campy Campaneris. I love baseball. In one game he played every position. You guys cover everything. You cover everything.
Hey, I'm sorry about the Nats. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
This is a rebuilding year.
They're killing me. They're killing me.
Thanks, Gene.
Okay. Hey,
Talk
thank
to
you.
bud. Take
I'm
care.
honored. Be safe. Bye-bye.
Bye, Polenta.
Always a fun dude and a smart dude. So interesting crossover intersection of Diddy and Biden and Epstein. It's ultimately the Mann Act, which I still have major problems with. It needs to be tweaked one more time. It's just, to change it from immoral purposes to anything that can be charged as a crime doesn't take out consensual sex workers, as you suggest.
Yeah,
So.
well, I just want to make sure that when people are scared and sex workers are scared and they're running for their lives, they can call the police without fear of them being charged. And I think that's a real problem. And I think that it's also, if people want to make their living by doing that, let them make their living by doing that. We're past that stage. I think.
There's still that puritanical something. I'm not sure what it is, who's fooling whom. But anyway, it's a big issue. But now we know a lot about the Mann Act and where it can be applied, where it wasn't applied, where it was applied. So,
yeah.
All right, kid. Let's see what's happening tomorrow. Oh, we're on the horror tour tomorrow. So, of course, we'll be holding it'll be money for Aidan Carney's continued legal battles. So join us for that.
No. By the way, we're not going to have any super chats. No. We're going to ask you to donate.
We'll have his numbers
up.
We'll
have his number up. Don't donate any money to us. We won't be taking super chat questions with Aidan. And on the horror tour, we're actually going to do some things. Aidan hasn't been asked. Okay. We've got a little meme going. He's become a story to himself, but I think he wants to be a journalist rather than be the story.
This is definitely a wild spike in his longer career, but he ain't done. He's moving forward. So we'll get into what has been, what is, and what will be with Aidan Carney tomorrow, 7:00 special time. So join
7
us.
to 8.
7 to 8.
7 to 8.
All right.
And we're thankful that he put us on. It's one
on
of
the horror tour.
It'll be his 4th appearance on Justice Served TV, and then including some walk-ins, right?
Scene of the crimes in Dedham. In fact, we'll be back up there for his next hearing, which I think is the 14th or the 13th, or anyway, that's not too far off.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else you got? You good? You done?
And then we Wednesday, obviously, we have we're gonna get these thumbnails up. I'm sorry, all of you, we were late pinning our thumbnail tonight. I apologize. We got a little busy and a little distracted, and so we'll have Koberger, and then we're gonna have Mike Easter to talk about. Is it gonna happen again? Are they gonna let somebody? Are we really going to showcase? Do we have to showcase? Do we have to let somebody who really is guilty, as opposed to convicting an innocent woman, to go free?
The Brian Walsh case, and that's what that is. That is, there's just overwhelming evidence that may have been obtained illegally. So if it's obtained illegally and it's suppressed, is he going to go free? Yeah. It is a dicey situation. At last check, court had not ruled on the motion to suppress. But we're going to talk to Michael Easter about all of the cell phone information, because that was the thrust of this motion to suppress. Right. There had been approval, there had been consent, not a search warrant, consent to look into a couple of devices owned by either the defendant or his son, but the cops went well beyond that. And so Michael Easter is the man when it comes to what you can get out of a cell phone and how you can use it. And then we'll talk to him about alternatives. Let's assume that evidence is suppressed. What then? Is there something that can be done to keep this case alive? So that'll be fascinating.
Yeah, and we also may discuss something that's going to happen in the future. It happened today. There was a hearing where Adam Lally, remember him? Oh, yeah. He's a prosecutor in Karen Reed. Well, he was under cross-examination today for his conduct of not turning over discovery, allegedly, for 4 years in a case called King, a murder case where it appears that they've got the defendant dead set again, like kind of a Brian Walsh case.
And all these names bubbling up.
But August 5th, he can't avoid it. His counsel was there today. Michael Proctor will be under cross-examination along with Lieutenant Tully. So in preparation for Brian Walsh, we may see this play out for a third time. But that's a couple weeks from now.
Yeah.
And then Thursday, of course, we have Auntie Deb, all right? And Friday we have the Fridelsons.
Friday, Friday, and we'll have Katie Magbanwa on the stand as we get ready for the August 19th trial of Donna Adelson. So,
right. Somebody said I look like Donna Adelson, so I have to take offense.
I was going to say, is that
that's like
flattering?
defamation?
Is that
that's like defamation. Whoever it was, think again. Look at the smile. Look at me. Do I really look like Donna Adelson?
And that's how she would have looked if the plane had taken off to Vietnam. Then she would have had that smile. Didn't quite make it. And don't forget too that while we're talking about Aiden, he turned me on to this Sean Paul Reyes case, which we're going to go up and cover in Connecticut. It's close to home here, where a Connecticut state trooper whips out a gun and goes after this independent journalist. It's frightening, but that hearing is going to be on Friday because, that's right, it wasn't the cop arrested. It was the journalist.
The journalist,
yeah.
right.
So anyway,
just
all
like
of that to
you
come.
Almost got arrested.
Almost, I just got threatened, but
you got threatened, right?
But
and,
no arrest.
I'd assume. All right, so a lot going on. So thank you all for joining us. Michael Bryant really pulled together all these assets. He did all this work getting us all ready for all of you.
Gino Reno Gino is just wind him up and let him go. That's the beauty. Okay, partner. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, I'm Michael Bryant. Have a nice evening and do the right thing.
And before you go, okay, I'm supposed to say this at the beginning. You have to please smash that subscribe button. Okay, let's do it now. Everybody, let's hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and preferably even before the show goes, when the thumbnail goes on, that gets you right into the algorithm. Subscribe, like, share this show, and also hit the notify all. Subscribe, share, like, notify, and we will see you tomorrow.
Riding flames, they charge with mine.